Hi, I'm Charné and I'm a Digital Community Manager.
Hi, I'm Rachel and I'm Digital Services Manager.
Every new digital project should start with user research. By observing and speaking to your users, you can quickly get a clear picture of their behaviors and needs. This will help you create products and services they actually want to use. In this video, we're going to run through some different types of research and everything you need to get started.
There are several different types of research you can do, but we're going to focus on the two most common methods: observations and user interviews. Observing users can be really eye-opening, as it highlights things that wouldn't come up in a conversation. If your charity runs any services, try going and observing one. You could even sit in the waiting room and just watch people arrive. Think about how busy the reception staff are and what tasks they're doing. Is there a long queue? And do people talk to one another? And what do they talk about? And so on. Another way could be to ask to visit some of your service users in their homes. This can help to build a clear picture of the context in which they use your services. During a recent project, I visited several children's centres and just sat on the sidelines. I watched how the parents engaged with the service and the family support workers, if parents chatted to each other and what they were asking about, etc. I soon noticed that the relationships between the family support workers and the parents were vitally important, and that we needed to continue enabling those, even with a digital service. User interviews are different to the types of conversations you might already be having with your beneficiaries. They are structured conversations using specific, unbiased questions around a topic that you're trying to find out more about. Research shows that just 5 interviews can provide enough information to confidently move a project forward. Once you've spoken to 5 people, you'll start to notice patterns, and you can start to explore those in a bit more depth. User interviews don't have to be intimidating. To get the ball rolling, try an initial round of interviews with just 5 people. This could be with your beneficiaries or your staff, or both, depending on the problem you're trying to solve. But it's important to remember to get a good mix of people. I know from experience that interviews can be daunting to begin with. I was pretty nervous before the first few, but it honestly does get easier with practice. You'll generally find that your beneficiaries or your staff will be more than happy to talk about their experiences with you, and the insight you'll get from them is really powerful. It can challenge internal assumptions about your users.
It's also really important to consider the ethics of user research. When you're recruiting for interviews and planning questions, always think of the user's experience of being interviewed. If you're going to be asking them about a stressful or traumatic situation they've been through, consider if they're in the right place to talk about it, and always offer or signpost to relevant support afterwards. You and your organisation are the experts in your field, and therefore best placed to make this call. Just make sure to follow your safeguarding guidelines. Be prepared for users to go off topic. You can try and bring them back on track if it feels appropriate, but always try to balance conversations so that the users understand they are being listened to, as well as helping with your research. Confidentiality is key when you're talking about people's personal information and experiences. Always use a simple, easy-to-read consent form with your interviewees. You can use the consent form template on this page and adapt it for your organisation. Interviews can typically last between 30 to 60 minutes. Try to have 2 people there, one to ask the questions and another to take notes. You can do user interviews in person, on the phone, via Skype, or other online conference call software like Zoom. Make sure you have a strong internet connection and a quiet space to do them. While working at YBI, most of the users I spoke to were dotted around the world in different time zones. I relied on Skype calls to carry out our user research, so we didn't get expensive phone bills, and it works just as well as a phone call. I was flexible with the times I spoke to people, with a few very early morning calls here and there. If you're short on time, you could also try some guerrilla user interviews. That could mean grabbing people for a 10-minute chat at a cafe, waiting room, or a conference event you're already running. Offering some cake in return often helps. You'll get less detailed information than from an in-depth chat, but it can be a quick way of getting just enough insight into a particular topic to move your project forward.
Interview questions need to be specific and unbiased. Here are some tips for putting together a good script. Don't ask leading questions. Instead of how useful did you find the training, ask how did you find the training. Rather than trying to back up what you're already doing, be prepared to hear some uncomfortable but useful information. You need detail. Try rewriting any questions that could be answered with yes, no, or maybe. If necessary, try asking them to tell you more about it or why. Avoid asking about future behaviour. Humans are really bad at predicting their behaviour. That's why so many people sign up to the gym, but then don't go. Ask your users questions about their past or current experience, and avoid hypothetical situations, like would you use X? Giving timeframes will make it much easier for the interviewee to answer, like, in the last 6 months, how often have you used X? Avoid jargon. Use language that your users will understand. Tech habits. Knowing what technology your beneficiaries are using is crucial to building any new product or service, and it can also help debunk some of those long-held internal assumptions about your users. Before the interview, work out what's the one thing you want to find out from this research. Sometimes an interview doesn't quite go to plan. Don't worry, just skip the other questions and try and find out this one thing. Intro and thank you. Add an introduction to your script, explaining why you're doing the research and thanking them for their time. We've also developed a worksheet, which is available on this page.
We've been through the different types of user research, ethical considerations, and what makes a good interview script. As with everything, interviewing takes practice to perfect, but it's essentially a conversation with another person, just a slightly more structured one. And it's really normal for some interviews to go better than others. Keep going and you'll get the insight you need to make your products and services as relevant to your users as possible. Start off with 5 people to interview. Be mindful of your users and their experience of being interviewed. Interview in pairs. Try not to use leading questions. Keep in mind the one piece of information you'd like to find out if all else fails.